Good evening and welcome to Crossing the Divide, the show that promotes common sense. As we discuss the events and issues facing the town of Winchester, my name is Glenn Albanesius, and as always I am joined by fellow fiscal conservative, former mayor and current selectman Ken Fracasso. Good evening, Ken.
Hi, Glenn.
Before we start tonight's show, just want to acknowledge the referendum vote on Saturday. The voters approved the budget at pretty close to a zero. Ken and I fought pretty hard to encourage people, obviously, to come out and vote, but more importantly, to give some thought as to where that budget and what that money was going to get spent, and the things that it was going to do for the town and the things that it wasn't going to do for the town. So while we both respect the outcome, we feel there's more work to be done, and I think, Ken, as we'll try to do tonight, you know, it's going to be a continued education process as to, you know, informing people, you know, why we held the positions that we did, and you know, why the next budget is going to be equally as difficult.
Well, I agree. I mean, the first budget was almost 9% that was put forth to the voters, so if nothing else, we saved the taxpayers a boatload of money. But as Glenn said, it's still, you know, the way they got to the zero wasn't in agreement with what Glenn and I were thinking. The $190,000 one-time fund from the landfill RRDD1, and the fact that we have another police officer that's retiring, half his salary went into that budget as well to try to cover this to get to a zero. But as we stated, you know, we will, you know, do the best that we can moving forward. But I would just say buckle up, everybody, once the reval comes in, and hang on for dear life, because I think there's going to be a lot of people that are shocked at what's coming at them. And the budget next year is going to be completely different than what we're looking at this year.
Right, and we, you know, I think I'd be on solid ground in saying that more than a few people, I think, had gotten to the point where they were just going to vote yes because they had enough of the discussions and the back and forth, and I think they just wanted to put it to bed, and you know, I can kind of empathize with that, but I think Ken and I are pretty much committed to you know, staying the course here and trying to make sure that at least we offer, you know, taxpayers and residents and voters here in town you know, an opportunity to look a little bit beyond the here and now, and just kind of what's coming down the pike. I mean, we certainly need growth in revenues. There's no doubt about that, and you know, we're pretty adamant that, you know, unless some changes get made, significant changes get made in the next budget, that the town is going to be in pretty dire straits financially. So again, we're going to be committed to, you know, discussing our solutions. Again, we're Republicans. We have ideas. We're not afraid to sit and explain them and try to convince people that it's worth taking a look at, you know, how we view the town and where it should be going. And I think that again, tonight's show will be another effort in that respect.
All right, and we're going to talk tonight about reinvestment, and it's time that we need to start focusing on solutions, and we're going to address some of those issues tonight. The major key here is getting these ideas out and having a discussion, craft a plan, and, you know, act on it. I mean, instead of just putting it on the shelf, we need to get off the dime, so to speak, and actually do something. And tonight we'll talk about long-term as well as some strategies that we can do right now in the present. I think before we get too far, I'd like to mention the contract that we just ratified before we get into these some of the other problems that we're facing. It was a unanimous vote by the Board of Selectmen to approve the contractors for the Supervisors Union. They have agreed to go to an HRA health plan. The family benefit structure is still in place. There is the town's expected to save roughly $38,000 with this conversion to an HRA plan, which is a good thing. I would just like to state that Glenn and I were in agreement with this, but it is a small drop in the bucket. We have 3 more union negotiations that need to be renegotiated, and there was a gross if all the other unions jump on board, as did the supervisors, I believe the expected revenue savings, the gross savings, was $300,000.
Correct.
Maybe a little, 312,000 maybe.
Right.
That's if they all agree to this, same plan that the supervisors union did. However, the net savings over the course of the year is $165,000. So while this is a small step in the right direction, this is not an end-all solution to the problems that we face. We've stated before in the show that we need to have the town manager do a survey on what the needs are of this town and what we need to provide services to these townspeople. If there needs to be reduction in departments, we need to be well aware of that. We need to have that discussion. And this is the only way that we're going to get to the end game that we seek and we desperately need to.
Yeah, and I agree, Ken. I think if I have the count right, there were 11 employees part of the supervisor's contract, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And I agree with Ken that we voted unanimously for to approve the negotiated contract. I think our labor attorney did a good job. But again, when you look at the numbers, although it's a decent size annual number, when you extrapolate it out over 3 years, and then you reduce it by the increases in salary, that number comes down fairly significantly. So certainly not necessarily going to take sole credit, Ken and I, but we were in agreement that this was a positive step in the right direction as far as trying to make local government as affordable as we possibly could. And I think the attorney did a pretty good job in explaining to us that negotiations as they are framed nowadays, you run the risk of asking for more than you can get back, and he indicated that had this gone to arbitration that we may not have gotten the concessions that we did. So I applaud the people that work in town here for agreeing to a revamped contract. Again, I think it's them stepping up and playing a role in ultimately trying to salvage the town's finances. So I just wanted to thank everyone that agreed to this.
There's just 2 points that I'd like to, and then we'll move on to another subject. The reval, which we've spoken about several times. I mean, if there's between a 10 to 20% reduction in the grand list, which I firmly believe there will be, and I think it'll be closer to 20 than 10 with this reval, we're looking at a $2 to $4 million reduction, in our income, and to save $165,000 is, I mean, we're talking about a minute, real small potatoes here. But one of the reasons that Glenn and I did agree to this contract was that we are assuming that we will have the support of the rest of the Board of Selectmen as we move forward on some of these larger issues. And as I stated in my introduction tonight, that that's the only way that anything's going to move forward. We're going to put some solutions out there and some ideas, and we are hopeful that we will have unanimous support or near unanimous support as we move forward to try to discuss and fix some of these issues that face us.
Right, and I think the majority of selectmen, I run the risk of saying this, that I do think they understand the problem. I think their the majority is a little less likely to make the tough decisions that have to be made. I think everybody that I saw on the other side of the table just want to get this thing done, and as far as the budget was concerned. But again, I was I was glad to see that all 7 of us stepped up and agreed to take this small step forward as far as the contracts are concerned. And again, I'll just end by saying that some of the numbers that Ken threw out as far as the the annualized savings, that's based on the other unions agreeing. And while we're hopeful that that's going to be the case, we certainly understand that there is likelihood that there may be an effort not to accept that the same terms of this agreement we just negotiated, and that's just going to further complicate things. But I think it was a step in the right direction. So I just glad that happened.
Hopefully, we won't get to that point, because if it does, then we're really going to have to look at some serious restructure, maybe sooner than we had planned to or wanted to.
Right.
But moving ahead, this week we said that we wanted to talk to you about some reinvestment. Not only is reinvestment a critical path to fixing this mess, it's also our ultimate goal. Statewide, there's a problem with jobs. We feel that same problem here. Most of our children leave the state to find jobs other places for better paying jobs. And our firm conviction is that the excessive regulations and taxation is driving these young people away from here. And the problem in Winstead's economy is not much different than it is anywhere else. It's a problem not only statewide but nationwide.
Absolutely.
So I think that first we need to define the problem, and I think that unfortunately we're hanging on a cliff here in Winstead. We need to get economic development going, and we need to get it going right away. The tax base has been declining for a number of years. Businesses are moving out. The downtown is a mess. We need to revitalize that section and reinvest in the downtown first. I believe this is critical. We've stated this time and time again, and I think that's where we need to start. The $20,000 that was put in the budget for downtown revitalization, I think is incredibly low. I said before that it should be 10 times that. I think we need a couple $100,000 in that if we're going to see any growth or anything to turn around there. So I think that
and that was for the stabilization.
The stabilization.
Right. Why don't you spend a couple minutes, Ken, and just outline that again? As far as the money for the...
well, the whole purpose was to take multifamily homes in the downtown area and convert them to single-family homes and give a tax break, whether it was for 3 to 5 years, partial or full. That's yet to be determined. But we need to find people that are willing to take this risk and turn these properties. I mean, it's happened in several cities, and there's no reason why it can't happen here. But once again, we have to get off the dime, and we have to start trying to draw people in here that will, revitalize the downtown. And I think that home ownership is, one of the best ways to do that.
Right.
We'll take a property that's distressed, multifamily, turn it into a single-family home that people will live in. People will buy from local merchants. They'll have some foot traffic on the streets downtown. And it's just little by little, this is the way that we need to bring this about.
Typically, I think statistics show that, single-family homes, people tend to invest a little bit more into the upkeep and the way the appearance of the home is. That raises the value of the home, and that increases the revenue that's generated, each year when we collect taxes. So we think that's a solid program. Again, Ken and I had advocated for a larger number to really kickstart the program and try to get as many people involved as possible. Since this budget passed, the $20,000 is there. I'm hoping that we can, collectively come to, an outline of how the program is going to work, get it rolled out, get it, publicized, and get people to take advantage of it. And I'm hoping it's successful sooner than later, because I think that that proves value to the program, and hopefully next budget we can increase that number.
Right, but I mean, and I think this is where it has to start. Without economic growth, we're not going to go anywhere. The budget can't continue to increase because people can't afford to pay more and more and get less and less.
Right.
This in my mind is the key to jump-starting the problems that we face here, because the town's not going to pay its way forward, and it just can't function anymore like this.
And I think we're in agreement that it took 4 referendums to get it to the point where people, for whatever reason, said we're at the point where this is how much we're going to pay.
Right.
I think any discussion beyond that at this point is futile. It took a couple exercises. It cost the town some money, given the number of referendums. But we're at the point where people have said, this is the amount of money that we're going to devote to the budget. So, given that fact, how do we, look at our operating budget as far as the town is concerned, and where do we restructure? And as Ken and I have said time and time again, we still have to keep looking at that side of the equation as well.
Right. I think a little bit more complex is what's actually happening here. I think all towns change over time. Healthy towns experience a swing in growth up and down.
Yep.
and some people in areas, more affluent areas, do better than others. In some places, unfortunately, like Winsted, tend to do worse. Businesses thrive and move on, or they die and disappear. But they're usually replaced by someone else, and that's the problem I think that we face. I mean, we've had such an outpouring, of leaving, and we've got so many empty storefronts downtown, and it just kind of, it's a domino effect after that. It's just like snowballs. The values in the value of businesses and homes, it gradually just dies off. And it just falls by the way of the economy, unfortunately. And unhealthy towns such as ourselves don't experience that. I mean, it seems like it's been just all going downhill. I mean, this was a huge manufacturing town for many, many years, and slowly over time, one by one, they've all moved out, and now the tax base is left to 90% or better of homes, and that's one of the main reasons why we need to reverse this trend, and get a tax base and stabilize it.
Right, and I think it's a cry for leadership, Ken. I would assume that you'd agree with me when I say that, when things are going wrong and headed downhill, it's easy sometimes to kind of sit on the sidelines and watch that happen. And while I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, I think that it's time for community leaders, political leaders, educational leaders, to all accept some responsibility for changing the direction the town's headed. And I don't think, given that this is Winsted, that's going to be an easy thing to do. But I'll sit here on as many shows as we have to and keep maintaining that we all need to be part of the solution. And collectively, once we start to build some momentum and people start to understand that, we hold the views that we do, if our base of people that agree with how we'd like to attack the problem grows, then I think we stand a chance of getting some things done. But just to sit idly by and kind of watch what's going on, I think is it's a sad comment on town.
Right. So I mean, if we're in agreement, which I think we are, we all understand where the problem has come from. The statewide decline in manufacturing, as well as our local economy. The downtown infrastructure has been left vacant, and it's just crumbling. And I think there's been a failure over several decades of this loss of revenue downtown that's gone unchecked, that's unattended, so to speak. Hartford experiences this, but they're a larger community, and they have that pendulum effect. I think it goes down for a little while, but then it comes back.
Sure.
And then it affects the bedroom communities. We're fortunate that we have some New Yorkers that live in the outskirts, that have expensive homes, that pay a lot of taxes, and that's a plus for us. But we can't we can't jump on their backs for everything.
Right, and quite honestly, if you look at the larger cities, the other advantage that they have is that the state does come around sooner than later and make investments through grants and programs. And Winsted, unfortunately, we don't enjoy that. We apply for a lot of grants, and I know that that's one source of growth and opportunity, but we have been somewhat unsuccessful at really getting enough money incoming to kind of change the the look of downtown and the direction it's headed. And so we don't enjoy the benefits that some of the bigger towns do, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And I'll be the last one to say that I think private investment is what's going to turn the pendulum, as we use that example. I think that there are people out there that know how to come in, make an investment, and get things headed in the right direction. We had a gentleman in town not too long ago, Martin Kenny, who had a viable proposal, had a background experience in housing, and was going to do the Bridge Street building, and unfortunately that didn't come to pass, and I think that was an opportunity lost.
Right.
I brought this up most recently at a selectmen's meeting, and as far as economic development is concerned, I do believe that we have to actively, at some point, we have to actively sell the town. I don't think if we just sit back and raise our hand and say, we have a lot of nice places here in town.
Right.
You know, please come to us. I don't think that that's going to be the way it's going to work. I think that, you know, we do have local realtors. There was a comment made about that. That's why we have realtors, and yes, they are part of the equation, but I think that, you know, we need to have some kind of plan as to what, you know, we want downtown and what Winston to look like. And then I think we have to have some professional people, you know, get in their cars or get on the phone and start to people that know how to come and do this stuff.
Right.
And I think that's the part that, you know, I think needs to happen sooner than later, and hopefully it will.
Yeah, I mean, we have to help ourselves. It's just, but as you just said in, you know, different words, we can't sit back and wait for it, you know, the golden goose to come to us. I mean, we have to go fetch it.
Right,
so
and the build it and they will come. You always hear about that when
Right.
you know you say, well, let's do this in town, and unless there's an immediate, you know, need for it or want for it, it's filled. You know, people are hesitant to say, you know, okay, put a brand new building in, and sooner or later people will come. And I would agree, there's some truth to that, especially in the economic times that we are right now. But I do think we need to be 200% more proactive in what we, you know, collectively what our vision is for town, and then how do we take that to market. I mean, I'm in sales, and you know, we get whipped daily to go out and get ourselves physically in front of people that, you know, use the things that we, you know, sell and market. And I don't think it's too much different in shaping a town or you know, reinventing yourself. You know, decide what you want to look like, and then, you know, hit the pavement and get in front of the people who know how to get it done.
It's no different in my business, Glenn. I mean, if I were just to sit back and, I mean, you know, I'm fortunate to work for, you know, one or two large state contractors, but if I just relied on them all the time to call me every day, you know, I wouldn't be in the position that I am. I mean, you have to actively go out there, and, you know, I belong to a bunch of organizations, and, you know, so, you know, and I've been doing it for a long time. But I mean, you have to go out there, you have to meet the people, you have to, you know, introduce yourself. I mean, you just can't sit back. But obviously, we spent a long time here telling you what the problems are, and now I want to tell you how to fix it. And we believe that there are three long-term strategies. First and foremost is the downtown neighborhood revitalization and the commercial Main Street recovery. I think that's key, and I think it's the first step, and I think that this needs to be addressed in that order. Second of all is these empty mill buildings. You know, there's plenty of them here, and, you know, they've been around for a long time. I think that here again, we've mentioned this before, I think we either have to make a decision. We're either going to demolish them, or one or two of them that are in the worst shape, or replace them. If nothing else, we'll turn them into open space for the time being, and maybe someday down the road we'll be able to do something else with it. And I think the third thing that we need to address is the municipal infrastructure projects. And God knows we have plenty of those. We have roads that need to be replaced. We have bridges now that are deteriorating. But I think that it's key that these be addressed in this order that we've presented.
Right.
It makes the most sense, and I think that's what we need to do.
Yeah, and everybody you talk to, you know, they want to see action. They want to see stuff getting done. And I've said, you know, more recently that sometimes, you know, what you need to do is just, you know, take a building and decide, like Lambert K, take it down. I think that would be one thing that people would drive by and finally, you know, applaud that, you know, finally the town is taking a step at, you know, renovating itself. And there's a building in decay. It's an eyesore. It's probably a health hazard at this point. The town owns it. I don't know what the cost would be to take it down, but I think it's certainly worth taking a look at, you know, how do we do it, you know, cost effectively? Would there be someone to be willing to come in and deconstruct it and, you know, just take whatever materials that are of value and minimize the cost there? But what a huge improvement for perhaps not a lot of expense.
An empty lot will look better than that. I mean, it amazes me that it still stands. I thought, not last year, but the year before that, when we had all that snow, I thought every time I drove down the hill, I said, well, you know, maybe under the weight of the snow it'll collapse, and then we'll be forced to clean it up. But this is just another one of those steps, as I mentioned earlier. You know, we have to help ourselves. If there is no one that's been interested in, what's it been, 20 years?
Yeah.
I mean, if not, it's been close to it, that the town's own that. I think that it's time, once again, to get off the dime and actually do something.
Right.
And I think that's where all this stuff will begin.
And it's the hardest part is to get action going. And then, you know, I think collectively, if the Board of Selectmen is in agreement on some of this stuff, that, you know, we need to, you know, instruct Dale to, you know, find out what it would cost to do that. you know, if there are grants that'll take care of it, I know that, or at least I've heard that there have been applications through Art Bogan to take it down. But I think it needs to be a priority, and I think again it's something that the taxpayers and the residents of town would certainly support. And you know, big picture, if you turn it into open space like it would, you know, if you deconstruct or take it down, that's what would happen. I think that's an improvement, you know, and that's what people want to see.
Right. So, I mean, there we have the three key issues. Downtown residential issue, that's where most of the value decline is occurring right now. And that's where we need to stop this and reverse the trend. We'll put more foot traffic on Main Street, and that will be a good thing for the existing stores that are there and any more that might come. However, the $20,000 that was budgeted for this stabilization grant is way too low, and we need to improve that. And the second thing we mentioned was the mill projects. This is a much more expensive issue that we're talking about, but we don't have a line full of people showing up to invest 10 or 20 or even $30 million to renovate some of these buildings. So this is another opportunity that we can demonstrate that we want to act together on this and get something going. I mean, if we need to demolish one or two of them, then so be it. That's what we should do. The municipal infrastructure is going to be the very expensive part. Unfortunately, we have no tax revenue coming from that. That's just going to cost us. But it's something that needs to be addressed. We haven't done much road work in this town in I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years. I mean, there's been some minor repaving projects, but it's just been a Band-Aid approach. I think that if we're going to attract investors, you know, we need to start doing something, you know, to improve our infrastructure here in town.
And I know Jim Rotundo has done, you know, extensive planning in this vein. He's identified the roads and bridges that need to be done and categorized them by, you know, how bad they are.
Right,
so
the degree of you know, rebuilding that they require.
So
right.
I don't think it's necessarily a situation where, you know, once we decide that that's going to be a priority, I think, you know, we're in capable hands as far as, you know, the order in which these projects, you know, have to be done. You know, the bridge up on West Street headed to Winchester Lake is in disrepair. Certainly we all know about Holabird Avenue. But again, these things are, you know, they're projects that we need to address. And,
right.
you know, when you look at the budget and, you know, people ask us, well, why do you want to cut more money out of the budget when there's nothing left to cut? You look at some of these things that need to be done, and then you realize that, listen, if the taxpayers aren't going to pay any more in taxes, and we still need these things to do, you know, to get done, that's why we're advocating, you know, smaller, leaner, more efficient government. You got to make the cuts in order to make the investments that we're talking about.
And the thing with the municipal infrastructure that we need to do, I mean, that's not going to happen unless we do the downtown revitalization and, you know, do something with these mills that we have, because, you know, this municipal stuff is going to cost a lot of money.
Right.
Our fund balance is, you know, just about depleted, and, you know, until we've put some money into the fund balance, we're not going to be able to borrow a dime.
Right.
So, I mean, there's certain things. That's why we've structured this the way we have, and tried to point out that, you know, this is the order in which we need to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we talked a little bit about, you know, EDC as a partner, and I know that we're going to have, you know, some further discussions at the board level with them, and I just want to go on record as saying is, you know, you know, any effort to misinterpret what I tried to do when I brought them up, I want to be very clear that, you know, I'm not pointing the finger at them at all. They're volunteers, I understand that, and I think that, you know, they are going to play a vital role in helping collectively to partner with the town and with investors, whoever they may be, you know, to get us headed in the right direction. And I'm hoping that out of that meeting that we have with them, that we gain some mutual support, give them some accomplishable missions, and I think that was another key thing that I wanted to try to emphasize when I brought it up is, you know, again, not blaming them for everything, but we want to make sure that they are, you know, in agreement that, you know, we all work together towards the same goal.
Yeah. I think we're running out of time, but we got about halfway through what we wanted to.
Yeah.
We urge everyone to come out and vote next week, and we hope that you'll vote for Jay Case for 63rd state representative.
Yeah, I did some campaigning with Jay over the weekend, and I think he's absolutely the right choice. And hopefully next show that we have, next Tuesday, we'll be able to congratulate him on a nice win.
I hope so. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.